Hi, this is Marjorie Morrison.
And this is Patrick Kennedy.
Welcome to the PsychHub podcast, The Future of Mental Health. We had such a blast recording this episode with Josh Groban, a man that needs no introduction. Josh is arguably one of the greatest musicians of all time. He is known for his multi-platinum, award-winning music and songs we all know, like You Raise Me Up and To Where You Are. But there is so much more to him, and I can't wait for you to get to know him like we did. He was born into a music family. His father, an accomplished pianist, who always encouraged him to pursue music from a young age. After signing a record deal, he put his college education on hold, a decision that for him definitely paid off. When you get to spend an hour with him and really get to know him, you will see that he isn't someone you'll have a surface level, superficial conversation with. He goes deep, way deeper than small talk. In fact, I wasn't expecting that right at the beginning of this episode, we'd just dive right in. He has a really unique lens, a way of seeing the paradoxes in the world that aren't easily resolved. And why? Even him, some days, dreams about escaping. It was really eye-opening to think that someone who has lived most of their life in the spotlight, someone that outside of COVID lives much of his life in isolation, either on tour buses, in dressing rooms, or in his own head, and that the only feedback and interactions he has, for most part, is either people critiquing his music or those that are clapping and applauding. Josh is someone that openly admits that mental health is a long slog towards a higher plateau, and that it's just so important to strive for that balance. He talks about the arts and how they've always been an important avenue for him, which is why he's so passionate about the link between music education and mental health. Despite the arts enhancing test scores and opportunities, minorities have half the access to arts education than non-minorities. However, low-income students engaged in the arts are 3 times more likely to graduate college. And students from low-income households, when provided with arts education, increase their graduation rates from 78% to 96%. In order to create a future of mental health, where our youth are raised to embrace their mental well-being, we need systemic change. We need to make arts education a priority for everyone so that they can learn early on that creative expression is such a fantastic way to manage mental health. We know everybody experiences mental health as they get older. So why not take these opportunities when they're young to teach them outlets to be able to tap into their creative souls and find ways where they can have stress reduction and go to these places at times when they are feeling the most stressed. I've had a lot of time reflecting on this episode. Josh is such a kindred spirit. Having a conversation with him really felt like a transcendent connection with me, with Patrick, and I know all of you will too. I hope you enjoy this episode with Josh Groban. Josh, welcome to the show.
Humbled. I'm starstruck with the amazing work that you do. And I know I speak for a lot of people in the artistic community and outside of it that rely so heavily on this conversation, rely so heavily on feeling less alone through the work that you and Patrick and everybody at your amazing organization does. And so I thank you for inviting me and for having this dialogue in general. It's vitally important and in many cases life-saving.
Well, thank you, Josh. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said less alone. I think that it's all about community, and music does so much to build community. So maybe we can hear your perspective on kind of how you came to this, but also how you think music can be an important medium in helping us improve mental health in this country.
Well, Patrick, you and I had a wonderful conversation when we first met about kind of the convergence of those two worlds, and I learned a lot about the work that you've been tireless with over the course of your career and inside of politics and out. And for me, my personal feeling about music and therapy, it didn't have a definition when it was doing its most potent work for me. It was just simply something that was feeling better for me. I grew up kind of an anxious kid. I grew up, as a lot of, especially in middle school and high school, a lot of turmoil, a lot of shyness. I didn't realize until later in life that I had an attention deficit disorder. So I was having trouble with, social things and grades and things like that, and didn't understand why I was feeling so disconnected from the world around me. And so that built a lot of anxiety, and then the anxiety would tack on to a level of depression. And at a time when everything around me was seemingly on paper to be so privileged and so good, I didn't understand why on the inside I felt this torment, this shame, this all the things that come with that. And so for me, having music and having music teachers, a place to play, a place to collaborate with other students, and whether it was a choir or whether it was just bashing around the drums just as for fun, coming home and having a piano at the house that I could play around on before doing homework, and then just listening to music, being a fan of music. None of us were at that point, but especially at the age that I was at 12, 13, 14, I wasn't educated enough about mental health to know this is helping my brain chemistry. This is helping me focus. This is helping my grades. This is helping my depression. I didn't know any of that stuff. I just knew it made me feel good. And I knew that in being able to express myself through music and having a teacher that pulled me out from the back of that choir to say, and now you're going to get a solo. And then getting the response from that, from my family, from my fellow classmates, feeling confident for the first time ever in school. The planting of that seed of having, and it's why my foundation is called Find Your Light, because having that light turn on for the first time was, it was life-changing. It was life-affirming. It made me realize that there was a way for me to communicate, that I had found a language that made me the most confident and most eloquent. And it changed everything. It changed everything. As soon as I started to have an understanding of how the arts in my life and the arts in my curriculum could help organize all that chaos, I used it as a tool, and it helped my confidence for everything else. It put me on all of a sudden back of the class to the front of the class, raising my hand. Yeah, hell yeah, I want to go to the front and I want to solve that problem. Because the confidence that I got in front of a microphone or in a role in a play, I realized, I have that in me. I've got a confident thing in me. I'm going to go to the front and I'm going to use that for my math class, or to ask the right questions in my science class, or if I have to learn a project or memorize a passage, I'm going to pretend that it's a monologue I have to memorize. All the ways that the arts helped me it was all encompassing. It made me feel better. It was relaxing. It de-stressed me, but then it also provided me with a new way of understanding curriculum outside of the arts, which to this day has been so important for me.
It means a great deal to have a multi-platinum award-winning singer-songwriter like Josh Groban say that, so that that you're making a difference in not just an artistic way, but frankly, in a societal way, by using your platform as a recognized artist to speak about this subject. For those of us who've been in public policy, we've known for quite some time that, as you said from your own experience, music education enhances success in particularly math, science, and the rest of your academic success. It's not just a kind of an extracurricular. And unfortunately, in many public schools, access to music is really non-existent. But I appreciate your emphasis of this, because it isn't extracurricular. It's essential to overall success academically. And then you point out very aptly that it does produce changes in the brain. It stimulates endorphins. Just like we exercise, there's a natural release of chemicals that frankly can help reduce pain, can build resilience, and, as you said, build confidence, all of which we need more of these days as we are really feeling the impact of social isolation due to COVID. Tell us a little bit about how you think, just as a consumer, we could do a better job at personalizing approaches to mental health, as opposed to having it just be kind of a one-size-fits-all approach.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, what you said about the chemical changes in the brain. I started to read the work of Dr. Oliver Sacks, and I started to realize that there's so much fun math that's on our side and science that's on our side about it, because there is the stigma when it comes to arts education and things like that about, well, it's a drum circle or it's a macaroni picture, it's it's a thing to kill time, and it's fun, and there is great there's greatness in the fun of it too, because you want to keep kids' attention, and it may not be as life-changing for all kids, but it boosts it's a mood booster. It's great, but it does change the chemicals in the brain, and it does it works in amazing ways. And to that point that you're saying about personalizing it, the mental health journey and the discovery in yourself that you want to find ways to become more healthy, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's there are many paths to choose. There are many ways to go about it, and there are many types of therapy. Not all psychiatrists or psychologists are right for all people. I went through a couple before I found somebody that I just felt was the right fit for me. Listening to music, I would also add, because of the emotional aspect of it and because of the personal lyrical side of it, we all make song soundtracks to our lives. And the great thing about a great song or a play or something in art that you connect with is that when you talk about that loneliness, it helps you feel things or understand things in you that you either thought were you alone, or that you didn't know that you could put words to. That a great song, a great piece of art helps you learn things about yourself you didn't know were there, and this in the way that a great mental health professional can do. And oftentimes you don't know that it's happening. As somebody who's, spends a lot of time in isolation, as you talked about. I mean, I'm in a, outside of COVID, I'm also in isolation, because I'm either in a recording studio, or I'm in a tour bus, or I'm in a dressing room, or, so I'm often seeing the world through a window. And you make music from your heart. You make music with every fiber of your being and honesty, and then you put it out into the world. And a lot of times, the only feedback you get from that is either from music critics or from a lot of people in a room clapping and cheering. And my favorite thing over the last many years, where there's been easier ways to connect via social media and things like that, is to get responses from people about songs that have made them feel less alone. As I've been having an easier time writing about more personal experiences with mental health and incorporating that into music, I'll get an aside from somebody who comes in, they'll do a meet and greet, and they seem like they've just got it all together. They're walking out, "Hey, John, hey, how you doing, man? Hey, oh, great. Oh, it's my wife. Great." And they're just, I feel like this guy is a whatever. He's a runner. He runs a hedge fund, and he's got a Ferrari out back, and he's here because he won a prize or something. And and he'll pull me aside. Somebody will pull me aside, and he'll just say, "Look, the song River, I understand. I just want you to know I understand. I go through it every day, and I want to thank you for that." And that's the kind of thing that makes it so special for me, because the fact that what music has done for me, I'm then able to express myself and connect with people, feel less alone with strangers, with people that I've never met before because of that. It's incredible. But Patrick, to your point, I rely on, you and Marjorie and those that dive into this on a much deeper and professional level as far as what the options are. I'm one of those people that has said, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to start the journey, because it's not always easy at first. It's not always a clear line. And the expectation of what you want from it can sometimes lead to disappointment on the way to certain enlightenment about yourself. And as somebody who gets very easily frustrated and disappointed by things, it's important if you make the decision to reach out and to get help and to try to understand yourself better and to be kinder to yourself in the process, that kindness should go, across the board of the process too, because it's not an easy process. There are going to be times where you slip. There are going to be times where, you work with someone that you think is going to really help you, and they say a bunch of things that just don't resonate or don't connect or make you feel even worse, even sometimes. And that's going to happen. That's going to happen. But it's the trying, it's the decision to take the baby steps, to take that journey for yourself, that I promise is worth it. If you just have to keep going. You have to keep going.
I think you nailed it when you said your unique challenges are not unique. They're frankly endemic in this world. And that is the role of social media has so bifurcated the worlds from kind of, as we call it in recovery, the inside job versus the outside job. Yes. And reconciling that our meaning and who we are is not what others say, as we like to say in recovery. What people think of us is none of our business. But it's building.
Our psyche's not meant for the magnifying glass. We think we are. We think we are. And these tech companies, they are taking advantage of the glitch in our system, because we think we're in control with it. We think that boost we get from a favorite or a like or a connection or whatever is helping us, and it's all part of it, and I can stop anytime I want. And it's, but the sense of self that we're all kind of collectively grappling with because of these technologies, it is making us more inward. It is making it harder with all the noise and all the connection. There's a loneliness. It goes both ways too. I have enjoyed hearing testimonials from fans and people like that on social media as well, where they've been able to reach out and say, I'm going through something, and people say, I'm going through this too. That I think is the original goal of what social media was supposed to be, to just connect in a very simple and very human way. But it has taken a dark turn in the last 5 years or longer.
It's interesting. Earlier, and you mentioned about confidence and how that confidence in high school really was what set you apart. And I think that's probably one of these critical things that we don't, it's like life is about kind of taking these risks, and these risks hopefully give us some confidence along the way to take more risks. For you found that confidence in music, and I know both of your parents had backgrounds in music, and so maybe it was like a natural channel. Do you ever think about what would be like for kids who are struggling with their confidence, which social media does to so many of us under that magnifying glass? And music, like you, it's what resonates with me. It's like, that's how I clear my head. So I don't know, have you thought about, like, for you got there naturally, for people who might not get there naturally, how to connect with something?
I think that, and I am so grateful that I didn't have to go through some of my most tumultuous and formative years through the lens of a social media filter. I think that if I had felt, I really, I have a lot of, I think the generations under, Gen Z gets a lot of slack, but there's a lot of pressures that are in their world that I am very grateful I did not have to grow up with. There's a lot more, there's an energy and an information boom, and a magnifying on the self and self-image boom that I think that our brains have not evolved yet to handle. And so it's, they say that one of the greatest killers of depression and anxiety is finding ways to give back or go out of yourself, and altruism. And the idea that if you take yourself out of yourself, depression and anxiety and self, loathing and all that stuff, it actually makes you an unexpected narcissist, because what's happening is you're making everything about you. It's just that it's not in the other term. It's not an ego thing. It's I can't stop thinking about how much I need to change, or I need to be better for other people so I can be seen a certain way. It's not that generation's fault, because everything around them is pushing them into these platforms that makes them feel like that's what living a vital life is having the constant approval of people. Or on the flip side, which is more common, any kind of anonymous negativity that happens on those platforms is also a representation of the kind of person you are, or the person that you're believed to be. And it's all, it's all completely distorted, so distorted. There's enough distortion as it is when you're depressed. You don't need an added distortion of other people commenting and judging. And of course, as we know from the bully in high school, the person who feels judged does the most criticizing and the most judging. And so you've got this dance on social media where everybody's feeling judged, criticized, bad about themselves, and they all just keep doing it around to each other. So even as the technology, everything is moving forward at lightning speed, I find solace in simplicity. For me, for that generation, for anybody that's struggling, I think that it's the tech candy makes you think that it's helping you, whether it's diving into Candy Crush for 10 hours, or it's going on social media and looking for approval. And I've found that no matter how deep the technology goes, that the things that help me are still the simplest things. It's just unplugging for a minute and taking a break for yourself to listen to an album you've wanted to. How many times do we listen to a whole album anymore and just say to my friends, I'm going to turn off my phone, I'm going to turn off my computer. I really am excited for this album and I can't wait to listen to it. I used to do that. I have to push myself to do it now, and I'm in music. And so I would say, keep it simple. Keep your goals simple. When you're in a dark place, find things to accomplish that you can really knock out of the park, whether it's cleaning out a cluttered drawer, or trying a new simple recipe, or just deciding to take that hike, whatever, something that you're going to get through no matter what, and just knock that down. Connecting with people. Depression, isolation, loneliness, it makes you feel like nobody cares, nobody's interested, and that no matter what anybody says, they're not going to help. I push all the time for people to call, suicide hotlines if they need it, to reach out, make those calls. And I'll get two responses for that. I'll get people saying, I've done it, it saved me, it's fantastic, there should be more awareness for this. And I've also gotten people saying, I don't feel like I'm getting what I need from it. I don't feel like they care. I don't feel like, and that's the demon talking. That's the kicker about something like depression. When you're in that dark space, is not just, it takes an extra step than just reaching out. It's also giving yourself just a modicum of permission to let someone in as well. And to really understand what caring, what love, what that feels like, because God, the walls go up and they just, it becomes impenetrable. So I would say, as far as keeping it simple, just reach out without pressure. Reach out to talk about a movie, talk about a TV show, talk about, send a meme you think is funny. Just get yourself out of yourself. I have found that when I'm in my darkest places, I'm telling myself a narrative that is I'm just going in circles. I'm chasing my own tail. And sometimes just talking to a friend about a dumb thing that I saw on TV just kind of like, it snaps me out of the spell. And so there's all kinds of intricate and long-term things to treat and to work on yourself, whether it's through therapy or medication or long-time treatment. But in the immediate, there are things to break the spell, and art is one of them. Simple connectivity is another, and exercise is great. Going out and just taking a walk is very, very helpful for me.
I love that you have two things that are so essential to good mental health. That's insight into your own challenges, and two steps that you can take to address those challenges. At PsychHub, cognitive behavioral therapy, whatever the illness is the change agent in helping people get out of the rut that they're in, or help them manage their diagnosis in a much more effective way. And you don't get there by thinking it through.
No.
You get there by acting your way into different thinking. So you
acting in a way that is counterintuitive to what, in the strongest ways, to what your brain is telling you to do.
Right.
It's why mental health is such an exceedingly important conversation, because everything I'm doing, I'm talking right now, moving my head, we're all in here. Singing is very mental, you know? And so as a singer, I have to find ways to almost psych myself out, not in a dishonest way, but in a getting out of my own way. And so, you know, with mental health, for those of us too that are spinning and cerebral, there is the misconception that you can think your way out of it. I tried for a very long time. I was actually somebody who resisted talk therapy for a really long time, because I said to myself, what is this person going to say that the stranger is going to say to me that I can't say to myself? I know myself better than anybody. I know my faults. I know my hangups. I know my mental health hangups, and I'm going to, you know, and I'm coping okay. So I'm going to figure it out. And, you know, it's not the best that it can be. And in many cases, it's the worst that can happen.
One of the challenges being in public life is the concern that you're going to be found out, that in some way you'll be made vulnerable. And of course, your life is so much predicated on a certain image. Having been through politics, this is familiar territory for me. But when I got out of Congress and I got heavily into 12-step recovery, I found that I'm unique, but just like everyone else. And the challenge is, if you let enough of yourself be transparent, you realize that everybody else is going through similar challenges, and it does build that intimacy that you need to get well yourself. So I love that admonition to support others and reach out to others, because again, it's non-intuitive, but the paradox is, by helping others, you're doing something very selfish, and that is you're really helping your own mental health. And I appreciate you making those points.
Well, thank you, Patrick. And you've been a shining example of what daring to share that vulnerability and the strength and numbers that comes from that looks like. And so, you know, I think that we need to eliminate the idea that not sharing is courageous, or in the military it's macho, whatever it is. It's you know, we've made great strides in people from all facets of life and industries talking about their struggles, and it's great. But there are still, you know, in the entertainment industry too, you know, the idea that, you know, we're putting all kinds of people through incredible stress, and really through very conflicting ego challenges, because a lot of young people who get into this business, there's no manual, there's no like, you know, mental health guides to say, so you've gotten a record deal, or hey, you've just been cast in a new Marvel movie, congratulations, now here's what you should expect that will happen to your brain over the next 12 months of the harshest inner and outer criticism you'll ever receive in your life.
Right.
And everybody having a say about you, your look, your voice, your style, everything. And then, whoa, how about this? Also, don't listen to that, because you've got millions of people who are screaming their heads off and creating a God complex, and have put you on a pedestal that feels pretty good, but also, oh my God, I'm on a pedestal now. So there's that pressure. So, you know, these are the things that you don't get told when you're plucked out of high school, you know, and all you want to do is fail and be okay with that. Have people around you say, hey, that's all right, you learned, and let's move on. I miss greatly the fact that I didn't get an opportunity to mess up and be okay with that through college. I made the decision to take a leave of absence, which then turned into a big career. But I think that it is so important that the systems that are in place, where pressure, performance is involved, whenever you're required to perform at a very high level all the time, there's a culture around that requirement that is that you suck it up, and that anything else that comes around it that might be forming a bad mental health habit, or is causing you to put on a smile on stage, but then be really dark when you're off stage. Well, that's just the name of the game. And if you don't like it, you can pass the microphone on, or you can quit, whatever job that is. And I think there just needs to be more understanding, I think, in the places where that is supposed to be. Your muscle is your ability to control your emotions. Your strength is in your ability to kind of suck it up and move on and perform. And the amount that you can perform is representative of how healthy and strong you are. It's a backwards approach because, as I mentioned, the voice, the mind, all artistic sides of it, it's all connected to mental health. And I can directly look at performances and things like that where I know I was going through a dark place and thinking to myself, well, that struggle is good for the art, man. That struggle is good for, that's part of it. And just going, I don't know that guy. I didn't like that performance. I was a wreck. So yeah, I do hope that in continuing to have these conversations, that it results in enough people stepping forward in industries where it's looked down upon, that'll change.
I also think both of you very similarly are using your voices to make in different ways to make it okay for other people. I have watched Patrick speak so many times, and 100% of the time, somebody will say to him and make him feel like, I never knew, I thought it was just me, or, I didn't know, and thank you. And right, is that not fair to Patrick? Like there's always he opens up and is so vulnerable, and then everybody around him is able to be vulnerable. And when you talked about, the song that people just immediately can connect, you raise me up, but like, I got it. You're talking to me. Like, I think in a way you also are able to connect with people and make it okay for them to not be okay or to express themselves. And so I'm just so grateful that there are people out there, in addition to making it okay not to talk, to give a platform to make it okay.
And it doesn't have to be a coming out about mental illness either. It doesn't have to be that at first. I'm happy if I'm singing a song that's either inspirational, like that song, or a song that might be about something sad that I've gone through, whatever it is. I know that when I would sit in those audiences for the first time when I was younger, I knew that I was experiencing something that was both very healthy and also very private. And I didn't feel the need to talk about it. I didn't feel the need to shout it to the rafters and bring other people into that yet. I just knew that in those moments, hearing it made my day better and made my next week a little better. And so yeah, we talk about art in schools. I think there's a lot of those inner private moments of comfort that are happening with young students every time they're introduced to the arts as a tool through their education. And they may not talk about it. They may not go home and even talk to their families about it or tell their friends about it, but the light bulb goes on, and it's something inside that will continue to get brighter and brighter and brighter as they grow up and as they feel more comfortable sharing that light with others.
I was interested on something from my own experience. It took me hitting a wall and then changing everything, leaving Congress, leaving where I lived, and leaving the way I lived, so that I entered a world with a spouse, ultimately 5 kids, and it's a 3-ring circus in the house, but it's not the 3-ring circus that I used to thrive on. It's not, getting out at the White House and going in. It was not making a vote and feeling as if I'm all that. And it's not hanging around with the big celebs. It's a very quiet and otherwise pedestrian, non-exciting world. But in a way, it gave me a new lease on life, because I had to do something completely different than what I was doing before. In your case, your talent is just so extraordinary. It's a tough challenge, I would imagine, for you, because to make those sacrifices when it's kind of like politics, you have to be all in. There's very little kind of being 1 foot in, 1 foot out, especially when you have all the performances and concerts that you've now even scheduled virtually, with Harmony coming out and with all of the online concerts that are going to come from that. it's hard to think as to in terms of your own life when that turn will come, because essentially you've knocked it out. You've checked the box in this area. If it's about just your personal success, which, as we talked about, is the way society kind of measures, did we make it or not? You've done it. But obviously there's something more, right? Because it's the art sustains you. But at the same time, there may be things that in your life you want to have a different experience. And it'll take kind of jumping completely out of the fishbowl for you to have had those opportunities to have those experiences.
You may be right, Patrick, and it's that comes down to where the journey becomes very personal to each person's life. For you, the excitement of and responsibility of the job that you were in, and the constant pressure and validation from that was, as is for me being in this business, is a drug in itself. Is a feeling of that your brain starts to raise a bar for what happiness should feel like, what your best self, what your most validated self should feel like. I nailed that high note and got Madison Square Garden to stand up for me. You knocked that bill out of the park and helped a bunch of people, whatever. And I think the key underlined red ink word is balance, because the flip side of that is that we like it. We like to do the nucleus of those things is good. I love singing. I love singing for people. You love changing people's lives through legislation and through reaching people through politics and outside of politics. You continue to do it. You can say you jumped out of the fishbowl, but you're using your voice for good just as much, if not more now than you were when you were in the confines of that government structure. So, I think balance is the word. You haven't given up on it. You say, oh, it's not as exciting or whatever, but I think you actually, are a perfect example of how to find the balance, how to eliminate the things that are causing a spiral of negative behavior while still keeping that nucleus of where the good is. Take me back to the first moment where I stood on a stage and felt that good thing, the good thing, not the pressure of having to sell a certain amount of records or having to be places at once or having to deal with self-criticism, but that good thing, the feeling you felt whenever that thing was for you that got you into politics. There is a good nucleus in all of these things that have these side effects. And I think the balance of it is, and this is where reaching out and having a community of people share that passion is so helpful, is finding a way to, because I talk to my therapist all the time about this. I have fantasies about leaving the fishbowl. I have fantasies about just moving to an island and going off the grid and just saying, you know what, like you said, I've done it. I've checked the boxes. I have, boom, it's been almost 20 years I've been able to do this. I've sung for everybody around the world. And I'm not married and I don't have kids. And I think to myself, maybe I should just give myself an ejector seat to just say, you know what, nothing is required of you. How about that? Nothing is required of you. Sit in that for a bit and enjoy that. And I always come back to the determination that to eject your seat is also to turn off the light. And it's not an all-in, because the other thing about anxiety and depression is it makes you feel like it's one or the other. It's very black and white. And it's either this or it's either that. And finding the balance and finding the other colors is really about doing the hard work of figuring out when to trim and when to try and refine those things that make it good for yourself, good for the world, good for music, good for the good in it. And balance is it. I'm trying to find it. I talk about the journey. I'm not at the end of it, and I hope before I kick the bucket, I find that enlightenment. But we all want to know when we're laying in our beds at that moment that we put in the work. It's not always going to have the result that we want on a day-to-day basis. It's not a quick candy like a swipe on social media. It's a long slog towards a higher plateau. But but
Well,
it's work that
beautifully
I'm
said, Josh.
continuing to do.
It's in recovery again. We say it's we trudge the road of happy destiny, which means we don't get
That's
there
it.
overnight. We have to work at it day by day. And I
That's
love
it.
the nuance that you put on in my own experience. Yes, I'm still in it. I found a medium and a way to be in it that works better for me than it did before. And as I said, you point out, I've got this added dimension with the family and kids. So I thank you for pointing out that, we like to catastrophize. We like all or nothing. And it's not
You
always
jumped out of
about
the
all.
you jumped out of the fishbowl. You jumped out of the fishbowl. You gasped for air for a few minutes, and then found yourself at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. How about that?
It's so true. And I love, Josh, you're just so inspirational, and it comes so naturally. And I think it's because of all of this insight that you have. But I think what you touched upon is so important too, about wellness and mental wellness. And at one point earlier, you said, it's not just mental illness. And I think that that is one of the flaws that we've done with mental health is we made it mental illness. Oh, that's your Uncle Jack over there. But really, mental health is something that affects every single one of us. We all have periods of times where we feel depressed. We all have periods of times where we feel anxious. And by the way, that's healthy. And that's normal. And there are times where we can't sleep. And it doesn't mean we have major depression. Those are the bumps that life gives us. And I think part of what we struggle with is this lack of resiliency out there, or this sense that things should be perfect and happy and great all of the time for all of the reasons we discussed today. And that's kind of created this bar for us is unrealistic. And then if somebody has an uncomfortable period, they think something's wrong with them. So I think this conversation around go get help, go get through these periods of time, you yourself are going to get better. It's going to help you in the future. And you're going to get those bumps again as we're learning, because that's what life is.
There's not a lot, I totally agree. There's not a lot of nuance in this idea of the pursuit of happiness. The word happiness is a much larger picture than just that. It's vitality. It's the ups and downs of love and loss and struggle. And, one thing, elevates the other, and it's the journey. And so, I agree. It's the resilience of knowing there are going to be bumps. And even for those of us that are on a social media filter where it looks like we're just only showing our best life, there are so many bumps people don't see. And there are so much trudging that needs to be done in everybody's life, that we can all share in, and hopefully feel a little less pressure to just show the final result all the time.
Well, I love the album Harmony, the name of it.
Thanks.
Look forward to
I just kind of, I felt like, this album was made in two parts. It was half of it was done before quarantine, and then the other half was after everything changed. And we were trying to figure out how to best represent, the time that I'm in, the songs that I want to sing to feel better right now. And then a couple of unexpected original songs popped in there, and the word that just kept coming back to us is how do we create a continuity and a harmony with this album? And it was just a word that, to me, from when I first heard it in context of Sunday in the Park with George, and Stephen Sondheim wrote about harmony and what it means to paint and step back from the painting and see the whole. It just seemed like a word that was right for this.
I'm so excited. I have no doubt it's going to be fabulous. Before we wrap up, you mentioned earlier your organization, Find Your Light. Can you share a little bit about that for us?
Sure. So I feel so lucky that I now have a platform to give back in a way that to a universe that gave so much to me early on. As I mentioned throughout this interview, all the ways that those teachers and the arts in schools saved me. I was given a bonus check at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles in the middle of a show in 2004 for about $50,000 from fans who'd collected money and said, "Hey, we love the philanthropic work you're doing. We want you to start a foundation one day, and this is our first donation to you." And that's just
beautiful.
I mean, I tell a story, but it's like I still to this day can't believe the generosity, and that just goes to show just how incredible my fans are and just how giving they are. And so, many years down the road, it was the Josh Groban Foundation. We were giving a lot of things to a lot of different places. And eventually I was asked by Americans for the Arts, which is another amazing organization, to testify to Congress. Patrick, you know what Arts Day on the Hill looks like. It's generally it's a pre-decided, day financially, but it's a good day for artists to at least, plead their case on C-SPAN and talk about the importance of the arts in our worlds and the jobs. And so I had an amazing time. I spoke with Linda Ronstadt and with Wynton Marsalis, and I was so humbled to be there. And I realized in that moment that while I could have a foundation for a lot of things, that my silver bullet, the thing that I have experience with, where a little bit could go a very long way, was in making sure that these programs that are being cut every single day continue to exist for young people. The programs that saved my life can continue to give a spark for young people. And it's not about talent search. If somebody like me develops, says, oh, this is what I want to do for my life, and I didn't know I had this voice, that's a bonus. Yeah. It's really for just the idea, all those other aspects, self-assuredness, confidence, humanity, empathy, grades go up, college, admission goes up. It changes everything. It's vitally important. And so Find Your Light is about making sure those programs in school and out of school continue to exist. So we give a lot of grants to hundreds of places.
That is so cool. So
I appreciate that. The memorial to President John F. Kennedy is a living memorial in the John F. Kennedy Performing Arts Center. And, he liked to quote Adams that my father studied war so I could study politics, so my children could study the arts and music. And it's a beautiful, a beautiful way of thinking about how important and cherished in our culture the arts should be. And your foundation helping to promote that is a value to all of us. I really appreciate, Josh, you taking the time today, and I can't wait to see you again when all of this.
I know I missed you. I miss you and the family. Love to Amy and the girls. And
thank you.
And Marjorie, so nice to meet you, and thank you for the amazing work you do, and congratulations on it. I really appreciate it.
So great. We're so grateful. I know I will be in trouble if I don't ask you, how can people reach you on social media or the foundation if they want to learn more?
Well, it's just at Josh Groban for everything, but
okay, that's easy.
For the foundation, it's findyourlightfoundation.org.
Okay, perfect.
And they can learn more. We've got some great videos that my brother directed about the work we're doing, and they can watch those and donate if they want.
You are truly very, very special, and we're all very grateful that you're out there using your voice and sharing it.
Well, vice versa. Thank you so much for having me on and for the kind words. Appreciate it. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Josh.